Hello and welcome to another historic day. I think every day is going to be a historic day from now on. But welcome to the first ever Fight Talk now. Obviously, if you have checked out my channel, you know I'll do 3 types of videos. This is my second type. So I just like to split them up rather than, focusing on you listening to a 1.5 hour long podcast. I try and split them up just so, if you want to listen to just football, you listen to just football. You want to listen to fighting, you just listen to fighting. I think it's just a bit easier for everyone, a bit easier for me, because I can break it up through the week, get a bit more personal sort of insight into each matter, and really get more opinions out there. So, like I said, today is all about fighting, so we're looking at boxing and mixed martial arts. More of a mixed martial arts fan than boxing, but I quite like comparing the two because there are benefits, obviously, to boxing. There are benefits, obviously, to mixed martial arts. So what I like to do for the first section is just kind of pick at an issue that sort of I think is quite interesting, and we'll just sort of like break it down, and then after we've done that, we'll look at some recent news in both sort of boxing and the mixed martial arts themselves. So my topic for today is quite something I think is quite, it's there, but I don't think a lot of people really notice it. So what the question sort of the statement is that, well, yeah, it is a question actually, is does mixed martial arts have a better comeback ability, we'll call it, than boxing? And what I mean by this is that when sort of you're in the sport of mixed martial arts, one loss isn't necessarily career ending. So if you look at the UFC, there are people who have been signed to the UFC whose records aren't great, but then go on to do great things. So look at sort of, the best example for this is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is probably the best sort of pound for pound at mixed martial arts because he's won titles at 2 divisions and he's won fights at 3 divisions in the UFC. And his record when he went to the UFC, he already had 2 losses. Whereas, if you look at that in boxing terms, there aren't really many boxers who have lost 2 fights who are considered the best. And what I've got for this is I've looked at all the sort of the rankings, looked at the champions in boxing. Because with me, I like boxing, but I like the big fights. So I watched Triple G and Kell Brook. If sort of something with Amir Khan, because he's from Bolton, so I'll watch that. But I do like the bigger fights like Tyson Fury and Klitschko. I'll watch that one, and I'll probably watch Anthony Joshua and Klitschko. So I've got sort of all the champions up to, I think, super middleweight I've got. So let's just have a look at the boxing. So start with boxing. So at heavyweight, your champions. Okay, so you've got Deontay Wilder, who has 37 wins and 0 losses. Anthony Joshua, 18 wins, 0 losses. And then I think it's either a contender or he's got a belt. Joseph Parker, 22 wins, 0 losses. All 3 of the heavyweight sort of either champions or contenders haven't lost a fight. Look at cruiserweight. Tony Bellew, 28 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. That's probably the worst one on the list. So we'll continue. Marat Gassiev, I don't know if I've said that right, 24 wins, 0 losses. Some unpronounced Alexander Vaisk, I believe, 11 wins, 0 losses. Light heavyweight, Andre Ward, 31 wins, 0 losses. Nathan Cleverly, 30 wins, 3 losses. And Adonis Stevenson, 28 wins, 1 loss. Super middleweight, Tyron Zegg, if I've said that right, 19 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw. James DeGale, 23 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. So you see where I'm going with this? There are a lot of fighters in boxing who haven't suffered a defeat. And what I believe the main issue with that is, recently you can see it with Anthony Joshua. Now, after 3 or 4 fights, everyone knew Anthony Joshua was going to be up there. He was going to be a great contender. But what boxing promoters are so keen on doing is that they want their fighters to have a build-up. So what it is what it is. But sort of when they're lower down in the career, they like to give them fights that will just put a win on the record. So they may be so much better and so much more talented than their opponent, but because they don't want to make the jump and obviously lose a fight to the champion, say if Anthony Joshua after 4 fights took a fight against Klitschko, who was still in his sort of prime or his height, as a champion and lost, then promoters would think, right, well, he's not going to make it again, he's lost. But then you've got the fact that he's got to fight all these other guys who are really not as good as him. He's knocking them out, yes, because the step up in competition is massive. He's taking these fights to get wins on his record and not solely because he's sort of on the same level. The way I see it is when you take a fight with someone, whether it be boxing or mixed martial arts, you have to take a fight with someone who's around about your level. You can't just fight guys who you know you're going to defeat, because it's not as entertaining. And I think that's where mixed martial arts takes a bit of a lead at the moment. Because with boxing, yeah, you've got some great fights that have gone on. Triple G, Kell Brook, amazing fight. But when that's your only amazing fight, because sort of with British boxing is doing very well because it's holding its own, it's like sort of showing off its own talent. But worldwide boxing, I wouldn't say is as dominant as British boxing at the moment, because British fans, when they watch boxing, they want to watch the younger stars. But when you look at mixed martial arts companies, especially, you know, the UFC and Bellator, they're putting on fights where their opponents are seemingly well matched, and you're gonna watch great fights because you don't really know what's going to happen. Unlike, say, an anti-Joshua fight, you watch an anti-Joshua fight, 9 times out of 10 you will know what happens. He will get knocked out before the 4th or 5th round. Whereas in a mixed martial arts fight, you know, you've always got that sense of doubt upon what's going to happen. So now that I've looked at the boxing sort of rankings, I want to just go ahead and look at, you know, the UFC champions rankings at the moment, okay? Now, we've got Stipe Miocic, he's the heavyweight champion. So looking at the heavyweights, none of them suffered a loss, okay? This heavyweight champion has suffered 2 losses and has 16 wins. So already you can see the difference. You know, that is one example, though. So we'll go to light heavyweight, which is 205 pounds. Now, Daniel Cormier is probably one of the better examples up here. He only has the 1 loss and 18 wins. So he's more or less, you know, similar to, obviously, the boxing style. But the people he's beaten, they're not, especially the last couple, they are good wins. You know, the fights he's took are fights that you want him to take. Then we'll go to middleweight. We've got Michael Bisping. Probably the worst example against boxing, but the best example of mixed martial arts. He has 30 wins and 7 losses. Now, Michael Bisping is probably the best example of a mixed martial arts fighter, because it has taken him, 10 years to get a title shot, and then he won it because he took a fight on short notice. That's all it is about. You could go through your whole mixed martial arts career being dominant and slipping up at the last minute, and that proves something. That proves you're not good enough. But keeps going, and then he gets his fight, and then the unpredictability of mixed martial arts sets in that he was good enough. Because don't get me wrong, he's English, obviously I love him because he's English, but he's not a great mixed martial artist. You know, he's a good fighter. Like, he'll last the fight with you. He'll go 5 rounds or 3 rounds depending on how long the fight is, but he won't necessarily danger you too much. He's not known for his power. He's not really known for his submission expertise. He's known for outpointing you, similar to a boxer. So in a world where you've got people who can knock you out, and in a world where you've got people who can submit you, he's not the best overall mixed martial arts fighter. But despite that, his persistence has helped him. So, and then I'll just go through a few more. We've got the welterweight, which is Tyron Woodley. He's had 16 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. Obviously, we've got Conor McGregor at lightweight, 21 wins and 3 losses. Featherweight, Jose Aldo is 26 wins and 2 losses. And then your only undefeated male, I threw that in there, undefeated male champion is the bantamweight champion, Cody Garbrandt, with 11 wins. So this is my point, okay? After 11 fights, this man is a champion. Now, that's something you probably wouldn't hear about nowadays in boxing, you know, because boxers aren't given that jump in competition. So, and again, Anthony Joshua is my best case. Anthony Joshua could have probably challenged for a title 3 or 4 fights ago. But Eddie Hearn, as a promoter, he understands that what he's got in his hands is a big risk. He can't afford to let Anthony Joshua just take this jump up in competition and lose, because that's his payday. So what he's got to do, he's going to make sure that, that he builds him up as a god to boxing fans, as this unbeaten conqueror, so that when he does finally get this fight, which he has against Klitschko, that we know that he deserves it. But we already knew he deserved it. He just needed to make sure that, I think maybe Anthony Joshua knew he deserved it. So that's something, obviously, boxing is very traditional in the fact that, that it's been around for longer, it's got its amateur scene, and people understand, that there's no shortcut to the top. But sometimes you're missing out on some great fights because of it. Because don't get me wrong, Anthony Joshua and Klitschko would be a good fight, but just imagine Anthony Joshua Klitschko a couple of years ago. Now that would have been a lot better fight, where Klitschko is still not as old really. So I mean, obviously age does slow you down, and that's Anthony Joshua's best weapon, is his speed and power. Where you're going up against Klitschko now, who he lost to Tyson Fury. Don't get me wrong, Tyson Fury I think he's a good boxer, but he, like you said yourself, Klitschko lost to a fat man. He literally lost to a fat man. So I think I've covered that enough. There is more you could go on about, obviously, but I don't want to overdo it. It's there for you to see if you want to sort of look into it more and be my guest. This is all just off Wikipedia and obviously the UFC's website, so you're not really being lied to as a sense of it, but I think the information's just right there. And if I could give sort of a recommendation, probably would be to boxing, to kind of, these newer fighters who are getting wins under the belt, let them have a step up. Don't make them take years and years and years, because what happens if what happens if Klitschko already retired? Who would Anthony Joshua be fighting? Because that is kind of the best fight at the moment, I suppose. After, obviously you've got Frampton and Santa Cruz. That's a decent fight. You've got, oh bloody hell, just a second. Always goes off. So yeah, you've got David Haye and Tony Bellew. That's probably my next big fight. But for now, that's over with. And we're going to look at some news now. So, I'm going to open up the little pad. I have a little pad, write everything down just so you know. Okay. So obviously we've got the big, not that big anymore, but we've got the news that obviously Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather were offered $25 million each off Dana White to fight. Now, Floyd Mayweather is making a big deal out of it, saying he wants a lot more than Conor McGregor. Now, I agree with that they both should be paid the same, and this is why, okay? Floyd Mayweather, let's say he comes out of retirement, okay? He has a fight. No one wants to watch him fight, really, other than possibly two people. Okay, you could maybe argue Manny Pacquiao, maybe, because obviously Pacquiao's getting on a bit, and the first fight was pretty clear, so you got all that. The second guy is Conor McGregor. So Floyd Mayweather has two opponents he can fight if he wants to come back and make a significant payday. Okay. Conor McGregor has about 500 people he could fight. Because Conor McGregor is still around, and because Conor McGregor is who he is. Okay, Conor McGregor, believe it or not, I know some people won't admit to this, but Conor McGregor is the money fight. People will watch Conor McGregor. People will tune into Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, not because of Mayweather, but because Conor McGregor is in it. And even though it's a boxing match, okay? So, how Floyd can sort of turn around and say, I want a lot more money, I could understand if it was against a guy who you were sort of, if he was still fighting and someone else was coming out of retirement, I can agree. But, I do think Conor McGregor should earn the same amount. If not, you could even argue a bit more. Because at the moment, Conor McGregor has blown up. And I mean, if you compare him to mixed martial arts success, he's pretty much there. He is the poster boy. Because you see a lot of kids these days, sort of, they'll go out on a night out and they'll realise, oh, Conor McGregor's fighting tonight, we'll go out and watch him. Or, we'll go home and watch him after that, And he is the guy people want to see. So, do I think the fight might happen? Probably not. Do I want it to happen? Of course I do. I want Conor McGregor to go in there, and he may lose, but he'll be sort of making such a big statement for mixed martial arts of how far along it's come and how far it can go. Okay? Done. The announcement of Mousasi and Weidman for UFC 210. Very UFC dominated. Don't have a go at me. It's just I couldn't really find anything big for boxing. But that's just me. I'm lazy. So Mousasi is pissed off. Excuse me, French. He's angry because he has been sort of quite dominant at the top of the middleweight scene. Still hasn't got a title shot. And this is kind of like, you'd think, his number one contender fight. Okay? Weidman's just lost to Romero, who everyone thinks he'll probably get the title shot next. And Weidman isn't a bad fighter. I think he got very unlucky in that last round. It was just a knee out of nowhere. Mousasi, though, is a brilliant fighter. I mean, he took his last fight just to get the loss back. That's how pissed off he is. He wanted a loss back off his record. So, very interesting fight there. If I had to make a guess, I would probably say Mousasi might edge it. I think maybe a decision. If not, I could see Mousasi finishing it by, I'd say, knockout later rounds. I wouldn't say quick, because Weidman starts very well, as you saw in the Romero fight. He just kind of loses it a bit later on. So that's undone. The Ultimate Fighter's coming back. Well, it started filming. And they've done a bit of a special one. They're bringing back old fighters. It's called Redemption. I don't care about that. The only thing I care about is the two fighters who are doing it, and it's Dillashaw and Garbrandt, Team Alpha Male, and obviously TJ Dillashaw left Team Alpha Male. It's going to be a grudge match. There's been social media going up. We've got Cody putting on pictures of TJ Dillashaw in a No Love t-shirt. It's going to be so good. I'm not even bothered about who wins the Ultimate Fighter. I'm bothered about the coaches, because the coaches after that will fight, and that is a fight to make. That is going to be a brilliant season with a brilliant fight at the end of it. I can't wait. Honestly, there's just some things in life that you need to watch, and that is one of them. I'm not sure when it's going to come out yet. Like I said, it's just filming, but don't get me wrong. As soon as that comes out, I will be watching that. I think that'll be the best season since Uriah Faber and Conor McGregor, and unfortunately didn't get a fight at the end of that. So just imagine Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber with a fight at the end, and that will be this season. Okay. Next one, going sort of out of the UFC, Rampage Jackson and King Mo are gonna rematch. I think that's a good fight for Rampage Jackson to have. Sort of recently, I've been thinking about watching a lot more Bellator, because for me, the main two promotions I watch in mixed martial arts are the UFC and Cage Warriors. You know, that's just what I've always done. I mean, but Bellator and Bama, I believe it is, I've been sort of meaning to kind of watch them, but it's finding the time, and so I think this is definitely a fight that'll get me to watch it, because what I like doing, I like watching the undercards. You see, I like watching the smaller fights, see how they progress, and I think there's some decent fights there. And sort of a bit more of a weird one. We've got Anderson Silva. He came out and said the UFC isn't a sport anymore. Now, this is something you really don't want if you're the new owners of the UFC, because obviously they got taken over for about $4 billion. And Anderson Silva was this, the big guy, okay, back in the day. He was the guy who got so bored in title fights, he started dancing. Yes, he got knocked out because he just got sick of knocking people out and defending his title. I understand that. So for that man to come out and say that the UFC isn't really doing well as a sport, but is looking more to entertainment because it's been taken over by an entertainment company, is not what you need right now. What you need right now is for your fighters to say, we're getting it better in both aspects. It's still a great sport. We're getting more competition, but we're also making it more of a spectacle, because that's what you need. You don't want it to be entertainment, because then you're going towards WWE. You don't want it to just be sport, because it'll go towards sort of like what boxing was in the past. Boxing has done well to develop us into more of a grudge kind of aspect, especially with Tony Bellew and David Haye. They're going the right way. You want a grudge between the two, because that gets people more interested. That's what I love about the UFC is that, and well, MMA in general, sorry, because the two fighters, they get more personal with each other. You know, they're throwing insults, they're bragging about themselves. That's what you want. You want more personality to the fight. You want to be able to go home and watch a press conference and think, oh, I'm watching that fight, because it is going to reflect what happens in that press conference. And we've got one more bit of news, bit of a short one today, but, you know, start small, dream big, is the Ortiz and Chael Sonnen controversy. Now, there was a video put on, I'm not sure by who, but it sort of looked at the fight, and what happened is, in the early stage of the round, Chael Sonnen looked like he was going to get the victory by guillotine, and what happened, Tito Ortiz seems to tap his hand, okay, as if it's a signal, you're going to get me here, and so Chael Sonnen gives up the position. Now, Ortiz went on to win this fight, and people are sort of saying, well, why would a guy who's retiring have to win against a guy who's just joined a promotion? And now what sort of was made clear to me is that Chael Sonnen, because he's just joined Bellator, his pay is reflected off how Bellator does. Now, Tito Ortiz is no doubt, obviously, the more favoured fighter, because Chael Sonnen's a bad guy. But the beauty is, as a bad guy, you don't have to win. So, by making Tito Ortiz win, and shutting Chael Sonnen up, and Chael Sonnen can carry on, you kind of think, you know, you can kind of see how the incentive is there for Bellator to kind of say, right, make sure Tito Ortiz wins. And, you know, you can go watch it for yourself. There's a few, you know, videos on YouTube. It is kind of, it's debatable. Some people will say, well, he's just trying to maybe get his hand away, or, you know, maybe it's just reflex, I don't know. But I'd certainly watch it for yourself, because it's a point to be made. And that is it. I'm sorry I didn't have more for you, but, I don't want to just comment on any bit of news. I like to pick pieces of news where I actually want to tell people about them. You know, because I could just sit here and go on about every fight that's been announced, but no one wants me to sit here and announce every fight that's been announced. You can go watch someone else who does that. There are lots of people who do that. But what I want to do is I want to break them down. I want to look at them, give you my opinion, see what your opinions are. So, in general, I think this went pretty well. I did. So I thank you for listening, or watching if you have. And obviously the next one up will be my American sport talk, which, just for the first one, I'm going to look at two, the NFL and basketball. I probably will bring baseball into the mix later on, maybe when the season starts. Hockey, I'll consider it. I'm not a big hockey fan. Just never got around to watching it. You know, don't get me wrong, it's probably great for the fights, but, you know, I just never really got around to hockey. So, thank you for listening, and goodbye.